You are 3 years old, and your mother is dead. Not dead in a hospital, not dead with a funeral and a casserole and a support network. Dead in a world that has no word for orphan yet, because it has not needed one. Dead in a world that the thing that killed her, disease, infection, a bad birth, a predator, a brutal winter, is still out there, still close. And you were small. And you cannot find food, and you cannot make fire, and you cannot defend yourself from anything. And the group of 20 people you travel with is already carrying everything it can carry. What happens to you? That is the question that most histories skip entirely. The child does not leave a weapon in the archaeological record, does not leave a handprint on the cave wall that anyone thought to study. But that child existed. Millions of them existed. And what happened to them tells you something about us that almost nothing else does. The surface answer is that they died, that a world without medicine, without institutions, without social safety nets, was a world that simply could not afford sentiment, that prehistoric life was too brutal, too short, too marginal to leave room for a child who could not yet contribute. That is the assumption. It is almost certainly wrong. Here is what the bones say. At a site called Sung-Hir in Russia, 30,000 years ago, archaeologists found the burial of two children, a boy of about 12 and a girl of about 9 or 10, buried head to head, covered in thousands of mammoth ivory beads, given fox-tooth pendants, laid with carved figurines and a straightened mammoth tusk nearly 2.5 meters long. The labor involved in creating those beads alone has been estimated at 10,000 hours of work. These children were given more grave goods than almost any adult burial from the same period anywhere in the world. Somebody loved them. Somebody mourned them. Somebody spent an extraordinary amount of collective time and resource marking that they had existed and that their loss mattered. That is not the behavior of a society that discarded its children when they became inconvenient. The answer appears to be yes. And the reason it was yes is not simply kindness. It is that kindness and survival math turned out to point in exactly the same direction. A band of hunter-gatherers is almost certainly related to each other in some way. Your mother's sibling is in that band. Your father's cousin is in that band. The child who just lost its mother is not a stranger to anyone standing around that fire. In a world before inheritance, in the financial sense, the thing you passed on were your genes. An aunt who raises her dead sister's child is not being selflessly heroic. She is doing something that evolution has been quietly selecting for across millions of years. She is protecting a partial copy of herself. But humans did something that almost nothing else in the animal kingdom does at the same scale. They cared for children who were not their relatives at all. Alloparenting. The Aka of Central Africa, the Hadza of Tanzania, the Agta of the Philippines, group after group across every continent shows the same structure. Children are raised by the group, and when a parent disappears, the group does not pause and recalculate. It absorbs the gap. A child who survives is a future hunter, a future gatherer. In a band of 20 people, every adult who survives to competency is a meaningful percentage of the group's total capability. Letting a child die at 4 when a small investment of care would produce a functioning adult at 16 is not a neutral calculation. The groups that absorbed orphan children outcompeted the groups that did not over thousands of generations. Those groups are the ones we descend from. 30,000 years ago, 2 children were buried head to head under 10,000 hours of worked ivory in the Russian permafrost. We do not know their names. We do not know who raised them after whatever loss brought them to that grave. We know they were laid down carefully. We know someone arranged the beads. We know they were not forgotten. And the fact that you exist, that any of us exist, suggests that somewhere in the long dark before history, someone did that for a child who had no one left. And that child lived. And here we are.